Good evening, and thank you for joining us on this wonderful end of football season special. We've got two cup finals we're going to preview tonight, and there'll be a little bit of end of season gossip that Gio and myself will be describing. I'm going to hand you over to introduce you straight away to our successful OLBG member, resident West Ham fan, and general football punter, I suppose, be fair to say. He likes to bet. Gio, good evening.
Hello, how you doing, Sam?
Yeah, we're really well, thank you. It's great to have you here. Have you got something lined up for the cup final for us?
A wee bit, yeah. I'm looking forward to it anyway. I think it could maybe be the final of the underdog tomorrow, I think.
The final of the underdog. Okay, interesting. You'll be going against what a lot of the members on the app are saying, but I like that. I like a different angle. So, let's introduce the game, of course. And the route to the final for both teams, we know. Obviously, Aston Villa put a spanner in the works for Steven Gerrard's big farewell, whereas Arsenal had to overcome an easier tie, I think it's fair to say. Gio, do you yourself like the idea of looking at a club's run to a final? Would you sort of think, well, if they've been beating better teams, it's worth looking at? Or do you think with two Premier League sides, you'd rather look at the league form?
Probably none, to be honest. I think it comes down to the day as much as anything, but I don't really look at the run, to be honest. It's just a bit of luck who you get. Obviously if you beat the bigger sides, then you've done well to get there, but it's why we often see championship clubs in the FA Cup or the Carling Cup these days. I suppose you'll often see a slightly smaller side in there. But no, I don't really look at the run or the league form, truth be told. What about yourself?
Well, if you looked at the league form, you're going to sit there and you won't probably have Villa winning anything like a corner, let alone even the game. Losing at home to Burnley last week. Previous to that, obviously the hammering by Southampton, which I think you have to put down as a bit of a freak result. I think my concern, we'll focus on Villa first, the underdog, if you like. They've got Christian Benteke up front, who has been spoken about probably more this week than Aston Villa in the lead up to a cup final. I found that a bit surprising. Do you think his head's in the right place to continue his good form? I mean, Tim Sherwood's revolutionised him as a forward this year. He's been outstanding. He's got this £32.5 million release clause in his contract. Do you just wonder if maybe he's going to either be motivated by that and want to sign off with a goal, or do you think it's possibly turned his head a wee bit?
Whether he's going or staying, I think he'll be wanting to put in a good shift, so I think it works both ways. If he is going, he's going to want to put himself in the window and prove to potential buyers that he can do on the big stage against the bigger sides like Arsenal. And if he is staying, then, well, this is what he lives for, isn't it, as a Villa player? It's as good as he's going to get at Villa. Maybe a European run. Well, obviously, if they win the Cup, they'll be Europa League next season, but £32.5 million, though, is a fair price, isn't it? I can't see much sides really going for that unless they get a little bit desperate.
I think there's plenty of desperate mid-table teams out there, Gio, sadly. I think the one that both springs to our mind will be beginning with an L and ending in Pool.
Yeah, I think so. But they're probably the one side that need a striker, aren't they? And
they need two, Gio. They need at least two. I mean, you can't be having Balotelli in the form he's in leading that line, in my view, and Daniel Sturridge just can't seem to stay fit. We'll focus on the game, though. Both teams have done really well to get here. Arsenal, this is a bit of a routine for them now, FA Cup finals. I think Wenger's the second most successful manager when it comes to FA Cups. Do you like that? Do you like the fact there's a bit of a pedigree there, that the Gooners going to be grinding out these kind of games? They've got cup pedigree over Villa?
A little bit, but are they good enough? Is that good enough, the FA Cup final for Arsenal? Do you know, if I was an Arsenal fan, I'd be a bit disappointed that all they're challenging for in recent times is the FA Cup. It's still a prestigious trophy, of course, and obviously myself and you support lower sides, so we'd obviously love a pop at that, but would you be happy as an Arsenal fan with just the FA Cup year in, year out?
The Arsenal fans I speak to, it's a minimum expectation. They have a minimum baseline, which they usually achieve, of a cup final, and hopefully they win it, and top four. And Arsene Wenger hasn't let them down over the years, to be perfectly honest with you. You know, he has, I think he's performed relatively well in his job, but it's a shame they're not going to kick on, especially this year. They've looked a lot better. And I think the difference is, this time last year, they were facing a Hull team who managed to drag it to extra time, shocked Arsenal, took a 2-goal lead, and Arsenal really had to fight their way back into the game. Now, they were a similar price then as they are now. They're 4-7 to win it in 90 minutes, which is short, especially against a team like Villa that I think are better than the Hull team they faced last year. But do you think the lessons perhaps are going to have been learned? It's a very similar squad to last year's that very nearly threw away the FA Cup.
Yeah, I think they will have learned their lesson, but I think they've slightly changed the wee bit. I think Cazorla sits a little bit deeper than he used to. But I keep going on about him, but Coquelin's been fantastic for Arsenal, and I think he makes a huge difference, and I think he'll make a massive difference on Saturdays. Just sitting in front of that back four and making the hard things look simple, just breaking up play, being in the right place at the right time. But for a young lad, he organises that side really well defensively as well. I know Mertesackers behind him with the captain's armband on, but he's the one often pointing and shouting at players as to where to get to. The 4-7 is short, but bookies have to protect themselves, don't they? The most likely outcome is Arsenal to win. There'll still be lots of people taking that price at 4-7.
I think it's interesting. If you like your short bets, I suppose you could say, you've got a choice of Arsenal, or you could go and look at Spain and look at the Copa del Rey and put Barcelona in there, because let's be honest, both of them are going to be short. I know who I trust with my money probably more than Arsenal, and it would be Barcelona. But it is hard. It is going to be hard for Villa. If you're the Villa manager, what do you do? How do you set them up?
Just counter-attacking, I suppose. Probably like Sherwood will set him up. He knows he's got pace. He's got like sort of Grealish and even Nzogbia, who just never really hit the heights everybody thought he might have once upon a time. But he's still got the pace in the locker, and I think Arsenal's weak points might be their fullbacks, and I think that's where Villa's strength could be. So, but I don't know. I think it's got to be counter-attacking football, don't you think?
Well, I did think, and then I thought this is Tim Sherwood, and I think in some ways he may set the tempo of the game is going to be fascinating. Benteke scored 3 goals in 3 appearances against Arsenal. I've just got a feeling if they get the kick-off and they've got the fans behind them, I don't think he's going to be sat there saying don't press and attack them, because at 0-0 it's very difficult to hold on and protect a draw and play for extra time penalties. The best continental sides try that and they don't manage it. We saw midweek Dnipro attempted it and they went 1-0 up very quickly, and if anything it made their lives harder. It's very difficult to eke out that kind of draw, and a Premier League team isn't really suited to it. There's not many draw specialists, you'd say, that can hang on. From my mind, I've just got a sneaky feeling if you had to pick a team to score first, I think if Villa are going to score, they're going to have to make the running a bit, and then they'll be in the box seat and have Arsenal attacking them and can do the counter-attacking that they can do so well. But this is a Tim Sherwood team that scored 4 goals at home in games. You know, they're not goal shy, no matter what their last 2 performances show you. I think you've got to put a line through them. I think that the Southampton game was a freak. I mean, you could play that game 10 times and you would not see a 2.5-minute hat-trick. That was bizarre. But are they valued at 6-1 for the win? Well, if I'm saying they're going to score the first goal and you like the cash out or to trade on the exchanges, suddenly it opens a different door for you on what looks a bit of a cut and shut final. But Arsenal are not a clinical team in the sense that they should be. You know, they will undoubtedly have chances, but we forget up until the West Brom game, they'd gone 3 games without scoring a goal at home. That's not Arsenal. Well, it's not the Arsenal we know. Theo Walcott, obviously the man in form. Does he start for you?
For me, yes, but I've always been a big Theo Walcott fan. I suppose I've always thought he was not properly played, but then Arsene Wenger's a manager with huge experience. I'm not going to argue with him. But who does he drop? You know, this is the same with Wiltshire. You know, this is the side that has got Arsenal to the final. Do you really drop one of those players and bring in the players just back from injury on the back of a thumping against West Brom, who have nothing to play for?
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? I think as team selection go, I don't think he can drop Theo Walcott. I think he's just done too much. You want a player in form with confidence, and I think it'll probably be Giroud that suffers. Alexis Sanchez has been brilliant. Walcott's all but ruled out with injury, so it does make it a bit more straightforward. Plus, I think Giroud's a great player if you're chasing a game to come off the bench and then have a long ball option. Let's not forget he is a little bit of a cart horse. For all he can score a few goals, he's not prolific. And I guess if you're a Villa team that has played Arsenal twice in the league, you not probably have come up against Walcott's pace. So it's still a little bit of a difference for them to face. I mean, I'm just scouring through the goal scorer markets. Giroud is the favourite sort of any-time goal scorer. Walcott, you can get as big as 11-4 any time, whereas Giroud is 11-8. If you're both on the pitch, I wouldn't have them that far apart. And when I think one's more likely to start than the other, I'd be amazed if Wenger left Theo on the bench, wouldn't you?
A little bit, but I'm half expecting him to. I'd actually be surprised if he started him, to be honest. I think Giroud will lead the attack. Because like we said about options off the bench, Walcott gives that option as well. But the only issue would be, I suppose, if he came on when they were chasing the game, there's not going to be a lot of space for Walcott to use his pace if Villa are sitting back with a lead. I think the game needs to be quite open for Walcott to be fully effective. I'd like to see him start, though. I want to see him do well because he's been really unlucky with injuries throughout his career. But he's been looked with a move away as well, so he could be another one with his head in a funny place, maybe.
I think that's a very fair comment. The interesting thing I would say is Villa's defence could suffer against pace, I think. I was reading about Ron Vlaar, who he can only train about twice a week. Sounds a bit like Ledley King almost, and they've really managed him this season to get him through. You've got Charles Nzogby, who's going to be a makeshift left back. Well, would he rather be up against power or pace? Probably power he'd be more uncomfortable with, because at least he's got the pace to chase back and try and get a tackle in. Sherwood played it down at his press conference, said, well, he has played left back for a whole season for Newcastle. I'm not a great believer in suddenly players have the ability to go from being recognised midfielders to fill a hole. Phil Neville was about the only person that seemed to do it effectively. He wasn't an outstanding player, but he could genuinely play either side of full-backs or midfield and do a good job. Charles Nzogby, for me, is not the person I'd want to see on that team sheet at left-back for Villa. Who would you have as Villa's key man aside from Benteke? Have you got anyone that you think, if they win the game, you'd be looking at man of the match? I mean, Cleverley's come in for a lot of stick. A Bonglahor might not start, but he's certainly a player that catches the eye when he can turn it on. Or even going through to look at some of their more defensive options. Vlaar is going to need to have a good game if they're going to win. Wondered if you got your eye on any of the Villa players that you think we should be watching, or you think could be leading the line for them.
Have you been looking at my sheet here? I've got Delph to be man of match at 16-1.
Ah, okay.
I think if Villa are going to have a big game, he is pivotal. To be in that central midfield role, he's going to have to be busy at both ends of the park. And I thought he was outstanding against Liverpool in the semi-final. I really did. He's also got a chance again on the score sheet. If Benteke doesn't score, he'd be one of the ones you'd fancy to score. And I just think he's also a bit of a favourite when it comes to selecting your man of match. I think he's one of those that people don't mind saying he's the man of match, because he's got that likability about him as well, doesn't he? So
English player as well, which I think always helps with these man of the match votes. If it's a close game, I always think it sways it when you look at who's on the panel. But he's 12-1 to score at any time. Now, my concern would be might not be on all the set plays. Villa have got plenty of players that can take a mean free kick. I have seen him score one, I think, this season though, so I wouldn't be putting you off that. Plus, he's a fully fledged England international who signed a new deal at Villa early in the season when they were struggling. But he's one that, again, bigger teams might have their eye on, and it could be a farewell performance.
Definitely. You're right enough, actually. He is someone, like you said, he's English. He probably wouldn't be all that expensive either in terms of if you're going to go get an alternative for him. But I just really like Delph actually as a player. I was a bit iffy about him maybe a year ago. I thought, he's not that great. But then I think he's really come on, especially under Sherwood again. He's been given the captain's armband quite a lot as well. I think he's really upped his game. But I don't know. I think 16 to 1 is a good. 12 to 1 for any time he scores a massive price though, because he does get in the box quite a bit as well.
And if they're chasing the game, he's going to be probably having a few pot shots. And you know, this is a cup final, and a lot of people build them up. I'll come to my bet shortly. The one thing I'm going to put the kiss of death on it. I foresee a few goals in this, and it might not necessarily be shared by one team or by both, but I just can't see Villa going out without trying to get a goal. I'm not saying they're going to score 4, but I can imagine with 10 minutes to go, even if they're 2-0 down, they're going to be cracking on and pressing forward. Their best form of defence is going to be attack, surely.
Yeah, definitely. I think if you saying that, Sunderland and that have sat back against Arsenal and managed to walk away with wins at the Emirates. I mean, they got a point at the Emirates.
Got a point, yeah.
Swansea won the week before it, so maybe you can sit back. But I think the FA Cup's just a completely different scenario altogether. A wee bit. Would the Villa fans accept them sitting back if it was 0-0? Probably not. You know, it's a massive day in the club's history. You want to make the most of it and go for it, don't you? But yeah, I've got a score draw. That's what I've gone for anyway. I won't tell you what score yet, but I've gone for a score draw anyway. So I can see them scoring as well. And Norris on the forum, who's an Arsenal fan, also thinks Villa's going to score. So that only boosts my confidence in Villa scoring at some point.
I think that's always a key thing as well. And if opposing fans still feel confident they're going to concede one, I mean, I wrote on the blog for our Google Plus page that I thought both teams to score even money with better way at the time was a huge price really for a game where you're going to get a 90-minute go. If one team goes 1-0 up, the other one's going to be trying to score. You know, it's very seldom in a cup final ever a steamrollered result, unless it's a huge golfing class and you get a team like Bradford, for example, who took on Swansea recently in the League Cup only a couple of seasons ago. That was a bit of a golfing class, and it was a cricket score. But I don't foresee Arsenal being 2-3 goals ahead of this Villa team. Do you?
No, not at all. I mean, obviously, like you said, bar the West Brom game, without looking at the results, could you tell me the last time Arsenal truly thumped a team anyway in the league?
Oh, I would say they might have done it around Christmas at a guess, but that's me guessing.
Yeah, but I don't actually know, but you struggle to think of it though, don't you? So that's the point. I mean, you try and think of it off the top of your head, you can't, you don't know for sure, and you take a pot guess. So they're certainly not the Arsenal we've seen years ago anyway, but Villa's a very organised side as well, so I can't see them, like you said, I can't see them rattling in heaps of goals.
It's a huge game for both teams. You know, this is the culmination of Arsenal's season. No one's going to go on an open top bus parade for 4th place, I should say 3rd, but they will do if they secure a trophy. You know, that's the nature of football, and whichever a fan feels is more important, they feel is more important. For me, I'm always sat here thinking, well, I want a cup final, I want to win, and I think it's important for Wenger. Interesting, I think also is due a big game for Arsenal. I think he needs one as well, and he does tend to like helping. He plays well against Villa. He's got a few assists in the games that he's played against them. He's played them 3 times. He's got 2 assists, and he's a player that he's been very in and out for me this year, and I think he needs to come to the fore. And it's going to take a bit of technical brilliance to get through that Villa back line that are going to be fighting tooth and nail. So I might have a look at him for the man of the match market possibly. You know, it's always difficult. He can have such a cold game and could be off after 60 minutes for Walcott coming on the bench to take his place. So it's a bit of a risk, and I'd probably prefer your Delph shout because you know he'll play the full game unless he gets injured. But what's your view on Ozil? Do you think he's a class player? Do you think he was worth all the money they spent?
Yeah, I do. I think he's technically, with the ball at his feet, he's one of the best players in the league. Seeing some touches he does during games is just fantastic, you know. But I don't think he's a player that will track back that much, and I think that can sometimes infuriate Arsenal a wee bit because, you know, you've got Giroud standing up front, Sanchez as well doesn't always track back that much. But he's a luxury player kind of thing, isn't it? You've got to be able to leave him to do his own thing. But if like you said, there's one player that's capable of just turning the game on like that, it's probably Ozil. It's probably him you're going to look to just to get the ball at his feet, one touch pass and just slip someone through and go or something. He is capable of that, but Does he do it enough? I don't know, but I'd rather have him for his 42 million and Di Maria for his 59 million or whatever it was for sure. Anyway.
Yes, I think one's adapted much better to the Premier League than the other one, and also will enjoy a summer break hopefully, as long as he's not taking part in these silly post-season tours and pre-season tours that I noticed Spurs and Chelsea this week were off to the Far East to try and sell some more shirts and things, and it shocks me. Their players need a proper break, and hopefully, they will get it. Now we'll come on to your predictions for the game. Then you can give us your bets. Now you've let us in on the secret of Delph. What about your score prediction? You seem to have something up your sleeve for me, Gio.
Just 1-1. Actually, I just think we very rarely see heaps of goals in an FA Cup final, but I think both teams will score. So I was torn between 1-1 and 2-2, but I just think being trying to weigh up the likelihood and possibility of each score happening, I just think 1-1's a lot more likely, but 8-1's a bit shorter than I would have liked. But
I thought 8-1 was actually not a bad price for 1-1 in a cup final. In perspective,
yeah, I'll probably have a punt on it, but I just won't go gung ho on it, I suppose. But it's a lot better than taking the 7-2 for the draw, I think, anyway. Because if you're taking the 7-2, you've got to look at the likely scores, and we've ruled out 0-0 almost immediately between us. So that leaves 1-1 and 2-2 realistically. So you'd probably be better Dutching the two score lines and getting more money in return for your buck, if you like.
No, that's absolutely fine. And you've mentioned Delph. Was there anything else you wanted us to take a look at in the game?
Well, if you are thinking a draw, you actually ever so slightly more value if you do 13-2 for the game to be finished on pens and 7-1 for the game to be finished in extra time by either team.
I was looking at that market on my tablet. Funny you should say that.
You Dutch those two odds, you get slightly better odds than the 7-2 for the draw. So if you're going for the draw, just split your money between those two, and you'll get slightly more money back.
Yeah, that's a very fair shout as well. Very astute of you. I mean, I'm just looking through here and thinking, could I imagine one of the teams picking up a red card towards the end of the game and it being 1-1, 0-0? If it's got scrappy and tight, and suddenly you're looking at Villa in extra time at 30-1. Well, that's not impossible. I mean, it's a final. You wouldn't be amazed if Villa turned up and won it. The only bet I'll probably be playing is both teams to score. You can still just about get even money at one bookmaker. So that's the thing I think I'll go with. And I will see the team Villa set up with before I place it. But I do think Benteke anytime has been a bit of a cash machine for us on this particular show this season. If you're going to have an anytime play on a Villa scorer, it's probably got to be him.
Yeah, definitely, absolutely. Like we said, we've struggled to find anyone else to score, but I do wonder though if maybe Arsenal focusing on Benteke opens up the space for someone else. Villa under Sherwood have been good at getting runners into the box. Delph, cleverly, it's no coincidence he's never scored under Lambert and scores 3 when Sherwood's in about, because he's getting in the box a lot more. Grealish as well is capable. He's got a lot of potential. He does hit the floor a bit too often for my liking. I think we're going to see that a lot tomorrow. I think we're going to see Grealish on the re-roll. But my concern is the referee, Jonathan Moss. I am a wee bit concerned at his ability. If you like, I've not been impressed with him.
Questioning a referee, Gio, that's not allowed. That's very unethical. And you, what's your particular concerns with this referee? Card happy, or he's going to stop the game from flowing, or let it flow too much?
He's just card happy. It was him when Burnley played West Ham. He gave a penalty and sent the player off. And nobody even asked for a red card, and the whole ground was shocked with the red card and got rescinded straight away. But it ruined Burnley. This is Burnley that's gone down and got beaten that game. It's got massive repercussions for sides, and I just think he's a poor ref. But this is where that's a silly rule where if you ref an FA Cup final, you're not allowed to ref again for some stupid reason, and that's where you rule the best referees out of it, so they can no longer ref it.
I suppose by a process of elimination, you're probably going to get a go if you stick around long enough. Which, I didn't even know that was an existing rule, Gio. So I've learned something tonight, and I hope a few of our viewers have as well. But yeah, well, fingers crossed he has a good game. And I've not looked at the card market. I was just flicking through one final bet to have a little look. Who do you think would be man of the match for Arsenal if they win it? Who would be the influential player, would you say?
Probably Cazorla.
He's 10-1 for man of the match. which is a big price if he's pulling the strings, takes penalties. You know.
Is that who you were thinking of?
Sorry.
Is that who you were just thinking of?
Yeah.
Okay, I just wondered if it was just we're both thinking the same player, or if you had your own.
No, I look. It's interesting. You can flick through, and I always think it's very easy for man of the match to go to goal scorers, but it's nice to see creative players rewarded as well. And for my money, I'd be interested to see how that goes. Tom Cleverley's 20-1, by the way. So if he did have the game of his life, who knows? But for me, it's both teams to score. A little bit nailed on for me on that game. Any other final thoughts on the FA Cup final?
Well, do you think Benteke is leaving in the summer?
Yes, I do. I will outline my reasons very briefly. Sorry, Aston Villa fans, if you're watching this, we're giving you no optimism, are we really? A draw and Benteke to score is the best you've got at the moment. I am concerned that Aston Villa haven't got a new owner yet. I'm concerned that they ended up dropping down to finish something like, I think, 17th in the end, which meant they've lost out on an awful lot of extra prize money they would have had. They probably had to pay Sherwood a pretty bonus for keeping him up. And I think he's their only real sellable asset. So that's why I think he's going. What's your view on it?
Yeah, I think he's going as well. I remember when West Ham sold Rio Ferdinand for 18 million, and the reason was, when do we ever have an £18 million player to sell? We need the money. And if they do play hardball and get 32 million, it's a lot for Villa. You could probably get 5 decent players in for that price. But the reason I ask is because Betway give you 11-2 for Benteke to score and then leave in the summer. So if you do think he's going to leave, it's maybe worth considering that. And they also give you evens as his last game for Villa. And Bet365 are only going 4-6 for the same bet.
That is an interesting one. I'd assume that would be some sort of new accounts only one, but that sounds like an interesting bet.
Oh, it's just a special they've got on for the FA Cup final. 11-2 for Benteke to score and then leave in the transfer window. I'd be cautious with the evens for it to be his last game, because he could still play in the Premiership and then leave in the same window.
Don't forget, I was going to say, with the way that the Premiership's back early August as well, he's going to have at least 2 games possibly before the window slams shut.
I would leave that one, and I would happily take the 11-2 for him to score and then leave Aston Villa in the summer.
No, that's absolutely fine, Gio. Right, well, we must move on to, I think, hopefully, one of the highlights of the season. And we're going to have a little focus on, it's an early one, on the Champions League final, which sees Juventus, who managed to put Real Madrid out in the last round, take on the fantastic free scoring. We've run out of superlatives for them this season. They've scored more goals than I think half the Premier League teams put together. Barcelona. Gio, first of all, 2 correct teams in the final?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's maybe a bit of the best attack, the best defence in the Champions League, isn't it? You know, it's really hard to call this game, and I was looking for value for tonight, and we're struggling to find value in this game so far. I think it might be worth waiting for specials, but do you think it's the best 2 teams?
My opinion is you don't get to the final by being lucky. You can win a final by being lucky. You can't get to a final by being lucky. When you look at the number of games they've had to play, you know, Juventus haven't had it easy. I think they've faced pretty good sides. That Real Madrid team that they took on, whilst has had its issues, and obviously we've seen a change of manager. For my money, I don't think that they are. I don't think they're as good as Barcelona. They're not probably even in the same league. But when you look at the English teams, would a Chelsea beat Barcelona? I don't think so. Would a Man City beat Barcelona? Well, no, that's been proven this season and the previous season. No. Would an Arsenal beat Barcelona? No, because they'd get out Arsenaled. I do think Juventus posed the perfect problem when it comes to facing this game. And I wouldn't want to be putting my life savings on Barcelona to win in 90 minutes, for sure. I suppose the biggest key thing will be is how long do you see Juventus being able to hang on and keep a clean sheet? Because that's going to be the difference. You know, they're not going to score more than 1. I don't see that by a long stretch, unless the keeper gets sent off or anything weird like that happens. What's Juventus' game plan going to be?
Before you think about their previous games, you immediately think they'll set up and defend and try and keep it 0-0 and as tight for as long as possible, and hope that Tevez and Morata can create something at their end of the park that gets them that goal. But But you think back to when they played Real Madrid in Italy, they came out guns blazing. I was very surprised at how they approached that game. I had money on the 0-0. It was over in 9 minutes. I thought they were going to set up.
Nothing worse than a 0-0 bet, Gio.
I thought they were going to take 0-0 and hope to get the away goal in Madrid, but they came out flying and got the goal. Then they sat back a wee bit. And then when Real scored, then again they went back out on the attack. And but in the final, it's a different thing altogether, isn't it? They don't have that home support behind them with that, so I do wonder. But I've got 0-0 at half time at 11-5 is one of my bets so far, because I do think both sides could be a bit cautious at the start.
See, I would completely oppose that. I might even lay your bet for you, Gio, at a slightly nicer price, because I think Barcelona will be a little bit anxious. I think they'll have seen how Juventus dealt with Real Madrid, and you can't help but be impressed by that. I think any right-minded person would be. As far as I'm concerned, I think Barcelona are the best team by far. But football is a team game, and Juventus have looked the best team side I think I've seen this season. They all work incredibly hard for each other. Carlos Tevez is back to being the player he was when he was terrorising teams in the Premier League. And he frustrates me as a fan because I just think he could have been not Messi-esque, but he could have been thought of a lot more highly if he hadn't been touted round, played different teams, sulked on the bench. I think he's a fantastic player, and on his day, he seems to have that hunger and desire to kick on and prove a bit of a point. You've got him up front. I really like Vidal. I think he's a great player. And Paul Pogba, of course, who is being linked to both Barcelona and Real Madrid rather unhelpfully pre-game for that. We thought he was going to go to PSG. He looks set to possibly stick it out till we think maybe even Christmas, they're saying now. But would you think he'd fit in better at Real Madrid or Barcelona, Pogba?
Yeah, I think he'd be good at Barcelona anyway, in that midfield. I think there's space for him, though, in that Barcelona team. That's the thing. Would he really, if you went to Madrid, could you really take out Modric or Kroos or that to accommodate him?
Well, I think the other thing is Barcelona are a team that are going to need a new face in midfield. They won't be needing new strikers. Xavi retires. They've got that lovely space to fill. And Pogba looks I think he's a fantastic prospect. And I'm still a little bit in disbelief that Man United let him go and all of that happened, really. You know, they should have paid him the money, but that's football. Do we think he could do what players have always tried to do and score against the team that they're going to end up going to? Do you think Pogba could pull the strings?
He's definitely got the ability, but does he have the free reins to venture forward as much as he would like, would be my question. It might be a bit suicidal if you commit too much players in attack against Barcelona, because when you watch Barcelona, Suarez, Messi and Neymar very rarely come back into their own third of the pitch, so when they get the ball they can break, and they can break quick, hence why they took Munich apart in the first half, in the first leg, without scoring obviously, but they had so many chances in that first 10 minutes, they could have been out of sight by then. But I don't know if he'll get to push forward as much as he did. Do you not think he'll be restricted a little bit?
I would say it depends. If they open up like they did against Madrid, he could be the man that gets to lead. You know, Vidal gets to push on a lot more than him, I always think, as well. It will be fascinating. I just really hope we see a good game of football. I don't want Barcelona to batter them 6-0 or something silly like that, and I don't think they will. It could just about be the Messi final, though. He is peaking again. He's reaching that age now where he probably isn't going to get better. He's hit that, I think he's 30, 29. He's hit that peak. He's been in fantastic form again all season. And Barcelona, they tend to always have this, but they've got another reason to win. They've got a good story to it. And obviously Xavi leaving to go off to the Middle East is going to be the story here. But there's one for Juventus as well, and that's the retirement or possible retirement of Andre Pirlo, who has said that he wants to play on for another year prior to the Euro Championships. He's going to then retire. But this could well be his last game for Juventus. I fear for him in this kind of game with this sort of tempo at his age, and he's never had pace. How difficult do you think it's going to be for him to influence the game versus someone like Messi, who's got plenty of talent, but still got that pace and ability to move? Do you think Pirlo's going to be very restricted?
Well, he's managed to influence games all his life without pace on his side, doesn't he? He knows how to adapt, though. That's what I like about him. He's an intelligent footballer in terms of he knows how to adapt and change games without moving out the centre circle, really. He did it with Italy at the World Cup. He was just completely pulling all the strings on that side. He barely covered any ground, but he was poor against Madrid in both games. I thought he was really poor. He's one of those players everybody likes to watch just because he's a freak of nature on the ball almost, isn't he? His passing is just sublime. But against Madrid, I thought
I don't think they'd ever create a player like him now. You couldn't imagine a youth team player walking onto an under-21s game and playing like him because he'd probably get shouted at for not moving enough.
Yeah, probably, but that's his game, isn't it? That's what everybody loves, just because but he's also got the look of just being a classy player, doesn't he? He's the only one that can pull off that look, but I think he's just sublime. His passes is unreal, and funny enough, he could also probably fit into that Barcelona side in terms of just sitting back and just letting the guys in front of him push on. And I think he'll be a real signing for someone. I'm surprised there's not been an announcement about where he's going. I don't believe he's becoming like a free agent, if you like, and he's not got a deal lined up somewhere yet. I think that's a bit hard to believe.
I think it's probably dependent on this result, but you'd expect Juve to probably win the league again in Italy next season if they keep that team together. But then there are rumblings that Tevez will go in the summer, and it could see Italian teams very rarely seem to be able to produce in the modern era, last 10 years, consistently trophy-winning sides. They tend to get chopped and changed an awful lot. And maybe he's looking over his shoulder and thinking, well, I could do 6 months in the States, then I could do the Euros, then I could retire. But he will probably have to be doing top-flight football somewhere. There was a wild rumour of Liverpool, but I think we'll park that one for a while because I can't see that under Brendan Rodgers myself. But I just flicked through to see the man of the match market and your favourite. Well, Gio, who's your favourite for man of the match in this game? Who do you think the bookie's favourite is?
Well, it's going to be Messi, surely.
Exactly. He's very short at 3-1 to be man of the match. You've then got Neymar at 5, Suarez at 5, Iniesta at 8, Rakovic at 8, which I thought he's been a big player for them this season. And then you get into the first of the Juventus players, which is Morata at 12 and Vidal at 12, Tevez at 12. I think maybe they're overpricing these Juventus players a little bit, because if they go on and win, you can't give the man of the match to Messi.
Well, they did it at the World Cup, didn't they? And they gave him the best player of the tournament. Even he was disappointed in his performance.
That was the sponsors, we think, don't we? That was very odd.
But I'd be looking at a Juventus defender for that market, actually. I think if I was looking at that market, I would maybe take a punt on the 0-0, and therefore a Juventus defender or Buffon has had a blinder.
Chiellini, 33s, which could look huge if it's 0-0 and he goes and scores a header in extra time or something. It's one of those. It's a fun bet, isn't it? Really, in a game that you probably don't want to dive in at Barca in 90 minutes. I mean, Juventus are 5-1 to win the game in 90 minutes. If they score first, you'd assume they'd get cut to pretty much a backable price to then cash out.
Yeah.
So it's a game we're going to savour, Gio, isn't it? We've enjoyed the Champions League this year, and I think we've both made a little bit of money on it. And next year we're going to be proofing all our bets as we go through it. Early thoughts for next year's tournament. It's not going to be Real Madrid's year, is it, with Rafa?
Nah, but then saying that, he is a cup manager, isn't he? So maybe, but I think there's a bit of unrest at Real Madrid at the moment, isn't there? And nobody seems happy. Even Ronaldo's getting a bit grumpy, but has he ever been happy, I suppose? But I don't know. I wouldn't be touching Real Madrid anyway. They'll probably be one of the favourites, despite the fact that they're not really. They haven't even won a trophy this season, have they?
No, they've won nothing, and as a result, Ancelotti has got the boot, which segues nicely onto our last 10 minutes or so, where we're going to have a little chat and a discussion around what we're hearing about managers, transfers, and what we think will happen. There are markets out there for you to bet on these. Some of our OLBG members love it. Some of them are not so keen. Gio, just want to your team, West Ham, are in the market for a manager. Who are you going to be putting your pennies on to pick up the job?
I think we've been linked with about 100 different people this last week. It comes apparent that apparently Benitez is pretty much okay to come, and then also Real Madrid job popped up, so he thought, nah, you're all right. I think I'll take this one, and who can blame him?
And you were surprised, he could be managing Kevin Nolan or Ronaldo. Well, yeah.
Yeah, and you put it like that, but then I know I'm a bit biased, but I think the West Ham job has definitely got a massive draw to it. We're away to this 55,000 seater stadium. We've got Europa League next year. It's not for everyone, but surely if you're a manager, you want to be in these tournaments. You don't really hear an English manager saying they don't want to be in it, do they? Especially in a club of West Ham size, this is what it's all about. I remember some people have been complaining about us being Europa League, saying we're going to get relegated, but I thought they just wanted rid of Allardyce because we weren't getting into Europe. So now we're in it. Now everybody's moaning we're in it. So I think we need to step back a bit and look at the bigger picture. The owner has actually came out this afternoon saying we don't think we're going to get a manager for another week now. But he does.
I'm worried. That means he doesn't know who he wants, Gio, or he hasn't got anyone lined up.
Well, apparently the board's a bit at loggerheads. I think Karen Brady, she sits behind the background a lot, but she is the Iron Lady, if you like, in our boardroom. But she's a fantastic businesswoman, and I love her at the club. But apparently she wants to give all the money we can afford to Ancelotti and just pull him in. Eventually money will talk, but if you can be bothered, you can dig around. And there's an article from 2011 where he said he would one day consider managing West Ham. But
isn't that just a polite thing that all managers put in their programme notes when a team comes to visit?
It's probably clutching at straws, but Allardyce was the 13th highest paid manager in the world, so it becomes attractive, doesn't it? When you look at what Allardyce has done, it's not a massive standard you've got to look up to, is it? But I think there's huge potential at the club. All we ask next year is you try and win every game, and a mid-table finish would be fine. No one's asking for top four or anything silly like that. It's just about entertainment, and that's something we've lacked over the last 6 months, and that's what's really.
So we can get someone playing football that's going to get you relegated as long as it's sort of 4-3 losses rather than 1-0 wins like Allardyce did, yeah?
Well, to be honest, I think everybody would. If you ask most West Ham fans, they'll say they would rather lose 5-4 and try and win 5-4 than play for a 0-0. It's about entertainment, because we're never going to challenge for the top four. Not yet, anyway. We need substantial backing. We don't have that. FFP ties our hands a wee bit. But we're going into a stadium. We're going to be debt-free in a year. Massive revenues coming into the club, so there is scope to grow. But Bielsa was 16-1. Now I back that, and I told you to back it as well. That's 16-1. He came all the way into 94 last night. Came into 94, but he's drifted back out a wee bit because I think he's playing us and Marseille off against one another to get the best deal for himself.
Well, if you were the 13th best paying team in Europe or whatever, I don't blame him. Yeah, Slaven Bilic at the time of this being recorded is still your market leader at 10-11. Then it's the man you just mentioned at 5-2. Then it's Unai Emery at 10-1 best price. Then it becomes a bit of a who's who of ex-Premier League managers. You've got Steve McLaren lurking around the 25-1 mark. Di Matteo at 14s would be interested. You're shaking your head.
No.
I think he's stopped being paid by Chelsea now, so I think he's free to take another job. Do we not think Roberto could be in line?
No, I'm not seeing one fan say yes, please, to Roberto Di Matteo. We'd rather have Allardyce back.
That is damning. Allardyce back. Wow, I'm surprised, Gio.
He plays for 1-0. So what's the point of replacing one 1-0 manager with another one? It's totally silly. But the owner did say it's going to be a manager that is going to please the fans. I think they know that this manager is crucial, and I think part of the reason Sam went is because of the fans. I like to think the fans stamped their feet enough to make the board set up. I sent you the picture, and OLBG tweeted it, of the lap of appreciation the last day at home. Everybody cleared out as soon as they could to try and say to the board, look, we ain't sticking around for this. We're not applauding this. What we've sat through the last 6 months. See you later. So I'm glad the board have listened and got rid of him. But this next manager is absolutely crucial. But there's a lot of managers distancing themselves from the job or going elsewhere, which is worrying.
Well, it's certainly high pressure, I think, at West Ham. The fans have big expectations, and rightfully so. I've just loaded up the market for Andre Pirlo after our conversation earlier, and his next club, his favourite is New York City. So there you go, FC I should add, because there's a couple of New Yorks out there. Then it's Juventus to have another season there. Then it's Liverpool at 6s. Well, Liverpool could do with somebody with his class, but I don't see them attracting him at this stage. Any little bit of transfer gossip or rumour that you think might be true that we should be having a look at, Gio?
Don't know, it's a bit 6s and 7s just now. You know, Joey Barton's free, where's he going?
I dread to think. I hope it's not Crystal Palace. I don't think we'd need him, to be perfectly honest, in midfield. But there will be a lot of change coming up, and I would urge anyone, you know, Gio and I and a few others are going to be doing an anti-post preview of all the leagues, and you know, this is the time of year that unless you know your club are going to go out and spend and bring in good players, I'd hold all bets, to be honest, because you just don't know. I mean, how could anyone be backing, for example, West Ham to get a top 10 finish next year when you don't know who half the players are going to be? Because there's yet to be that manager that's going to come in and push clean through. Gio's looking like he wants to say something on that.
Funny enough, the owner said we've got a new signing to announce in the next 24 hours, so they're pushing ahead with the signings. They're not waiting for the manager, which is a bit weird. But when they got asked about it, they just said it's because of who it is. They have to go get him rather than sit around waiting for a manager. So makes me wonder who it is, but I'm going to assume it's a freebie. It must be, surely, or someone they've had lined up for a long time. But we'll wait and see. But they said there's a big signing coming in the next 2-3 weeks, so probably Carlton Cole again, like you said, is it?
Could be the third coming of Carlton Cole, but we shall see. Well, we'll keep you posted. Like I say, Gio and myself and a few others are going to do a little anti-post preview once we've got all the managers in place and a few of the signings have been made. We're going to get them in relatively early this year as the Premier League returns around the 7th of August, which we're all looking forward to. Got the Copa America before that, of course. We'll be doing some previews around that as well. We'll try and maybe squeeze in a Champions League update midweek for you guys. But I want to say thank you, a big thank you to Gio this evening. Gio, just reel off those FA Cup tips again to remind everybody.
Delph man match at 16-1. Benteke to score and for him to leave Aston Villa in the summer, unfortunately, at 11-2. And then I do like Villa in extra time at 30-1.
Could be a very mixed day for Villa then, with possibly seeing their best goal scorer of recent times anyway score and then leave, Gio thinks. But interesting tips all the same. Keep your views coming in, guys. And as for going forward next season, we want more of you getting involved. Please don't hesitate. Drop us a tweet through the OLBG account, or you can PM myself on there as Sporting Sam can, and we'll have a chat and we'll try and get you guys on. Really enjoyed this evening's company. Gio, thank you very much.
No problem.
And here's to hopefully a really good FA Cup final, a great Champions League final, and a great summer of football. Thank you very much for watching.